so we're going to have a look at semi-ripe cuttings. Okay, so semi-ripe is as it says. So we've got you have the softwood in the spring. Okay, which is usually a little bit softer than that. If I look at a rosemary, you can see that that's a very soft, and then you start to get a bit of resistance. And when you can actually feel if it's semi-ripe, you get a little bit of resistance, and that's where you want to take the cutting just a few mil into the resistance, so you've got a little bit of ripe wood. And the reason for that is the hormones are more stable on that, and they will root better. Okay, the normal time to take a lot of semi-ripe cuttings is August, September. However, different plants you can do at different times of the year. For example, holly and things like juniper and taxus you can take right around into February, so you can vary that. And this sort of, you can see here we've got a camellia, and sometimes people take that sort of late spring when it's got a new sort of growth, and there's just a tiny bit of this sort of butter soft brown wood just there. So that's another time you can take a camellia, or you can take a slightly harder woody one at this time of the year. We'll look at a couple of ways with camellia, because you can, I would be tempted to take it just with a little bit of ripe wood, and I would remove the bottom third of leaves. Okay, bottom third. You can even remove the next one. If you want to, you can actually cut the leaves across the middle as well. So some people you'll see will do that. It doesn't need a lot of foliage on, and you could put that in as a cutting. Before we put it in, well, you're going to use a little bit of hormone rooting powder. So what we've got here is a little bit of hormone rooting powder, and basically it's just got a very tiny amount of auxin, or indole acetic acid, which is the sort of, or indole butyric acid, and the rest of it is talcum powder, or the equivalent of talc. It's just a carrying agent, and all you do is you sort of dip it in, and then that's ready to go into your compost. Okay, so we're going to be preparing some of these. You're going to do at least sort of 5 each, okay, of this semi-ripe cutting. So that's one way to do a camellia. And another way to do a camellia, you can do what's called a leaf bud cutting. And so if you've got a shoot, again, you want the current sort of growth, and what you can do is you want to have a bud and a portion of stem. In fact, I'm going to take another one. That's not a very good example. This one's a better one, because you can see the bud there, and the bud is healthy. On the previous one, it didn't have a bud in the axil. So this has got a bud, it's got a leaf, and you want a portion of stem. Okay, I don't need that other leaf. So that's what we call a leaf bud cutting. So you'll get the sort of new growth coming from the bud. The leaf will keep it alive, will carry on photosynthesizing, and this portion of stem will provide the root. Now with a leaf bud, you don't dip it into hormone rooting powder, because the potential roots are near to the shoot, and it will inhibit the rooting in this case. So not on a leaf bud cutting. You can do this on clematis. Quite a few climbers you do a leaf bud cutting. Okay, so that's, but what we're going to do, we're going to concentrate on semi-ripe. So if we were doing a rosemary, you can see this is quite woody down here, and we'll be into hardwood cuttings literally very soon, because we're quite late into the year. So I would cut that, I'd get that nice soft sort of wood, and as soon as I feel resistance, cut it there, just getting 2 or 3 mil of the ripe wood, strip the bottom third leaves, tiny bit of hormone rooting powder, and you're ready to go. Obviously you're going to prepare a batch, so you'd probably do about 5 or 10 and dip them into the hormone rooting powder all together. Okay, so you can see the kind of cuttings we're going to get. We're just going to look at a couple of others. So I've got some berberis as well, which is slightly different. I'm just going to grab a bit of berberis. What we've got is, there's various different ways we can do a berberis cutting. You can do exactly the same. You've got the softwood, and see how there's a change of colour as you go into the ripe wood. So you want to nip it with a bit of ripe wood. So that's another way. However, we can also do a what we call a heel cutting, where we peel it off the stem. So you get a little heel, it peels it, and then what you do is obviously you can strip off the bottom third of leaves. It is a spiky little root, so just be careful now as you do that. So, and don't worry if you, what we call, wound the stem a little bit. So if it peels a little bit of bark, as long as it doesn't ring bark it too much, you can wound it a little bit, and then it can root from anywhere down there where the cambium layer, which produces the new cells, will produce new roots from. So again, you can do that. You can dip it into the hormone rooting. If the heel is really big, you can trim it. Okay, so that's there's 3 different types of cutting there. We're going to do one more, which I normally use Mahonia to demonstrate this, but I'll demonstrate it on the Berberis. So another one we can do is what's called the mallet cutting. And what I'm going to do on the mallet cutting, where this joins the stem, I'm going to cut it sort of, and there's one here, I'm going to cut below it by about a centimetre, and then what I'm going to do is with that, is I'm going to then cut it about a centimetre above it. Okay, so I'm going in about a centimetre above, and that, I'm just going to take the other side off actually, so I'm going to take that side because I only need one side. Could cut it down the middle actually. Then I'm going to remove the bottom third of leaves again, and what you end up with there is what's called a mallet cutting. So let's just have a look at that in a second. I'll just strip those leaves off. And you've got, if you imagine, I don't know, there's could be some posh people amongst me who used to play croquet, and you've got a little mallet there on the bottom, and that is where, that's another kind of cutting, the mallet cutting. So you've got the mallet, you've got the heel, where you took a little portion of, you actually ripped it off the stem, so that's the heel, or you had the sort of tip with a little bit of bright wood, or you just cut it back a little bit, okay, or you just went for the leaf bud cutting, where you've got the leaf, a bud, and a portion of stem. So you've got a number of different ways to do what we call a semi-ripe cutting. So obviously, as we said in class, and you came up with, needs to be free from pests and diseases, needs to be true to type. The leaves need to be fully expanded, so when you take the cutting, if they're not fully expanded, they'll spend their energy trying to expand rather than rooting. Obviously, you also want it not flowering, because it's going to use twice as much energy to flower rather than put the energy into rooting. Okay, so that's what we're kind of doing. And if you think of a camellia, maybe up to 20 quid each, 20 pounds each, if you can root some of these, that's pretty good. So let's just have a quick look at the compost we're going to use. Now, to be honest, I'd actually normally use, there's vermiculite down it. I'd normally use 50-50 peat, not peat, sorry. I would use, forget that, cut, edit. I would use, we're going to use this lovely multi-purpose silver grow, which doesn't have peat. It's sort of like shredded wood and bark and that kind of thing mixed into it to get your organic matter. And normally I'd mix a bit of perlite, which is it's from a volcanic origin, and it expands, and it's really good at getting the air into the compost, which is what you want. You want what's called lots of air-filled porosity, so that you get plenty of respiration around the roots, produces lots of energy for plant roots. Now, unfortunately, I've just got a bit of vermiculite, which will help a little bit, so I'm going to put a little handful of vermiculite into there. Could put a little bit more, I should put a couple of handfuls, just to open up this mix. It's very difficult with compost, because getting a compost which is uniform, as I say, normally I'd go about 50-50 with this, with perlite, but this will be fine. So we'll just break up the lumps, and what we'll do, just ease that out a little bit, so that's not too bad. It's a little bit on the dry side actually, it's not quite holding together, but we'll I'll have to just wet that down a little bit. So now what we're going to do, we have got some cells, but they're quite small, and not that it's in here for a long time, so we'll probably do a half pot. But you could use these, just about get away with these, but it's a little bit tight for space. I'm just going to get a half pot. What we're going to do is, again, just pop it in there. Don't have to press this in any way. You want plenty of air. So I'm really not, I'm just going to do a little bit of a tap. I'm not going to do any more than that, because I want to retain the air. And because these are quite firm, these cuttings, obviously, once you've dipped them like that and put them in, they're firm enough. If you want to, you could put a pen in. You can see that's a different kind where I've cut it back. Obviously, you'll be doing the same type. And again, just push that in. As long as it's sitting in the middle of the compost, not on the bottom, that's good. And then we'll just pop some of these others in. So we've got this one was the heel, so that was one. Pop a little bit of compost and just pop that in, just pushing that in again like that. And if you want to, when you come on to so with the mallet cutting, what you might have to do so with the mallet cutting, what you might have to do is to just make a little bit of a hole there to get that in and just squash that in. Okay, sort of keeping them around the outside. Okay, so that's sort of, yours will be more uniform than mine, and then of course pop a label in saying what it is. So we've got a whole assortment here. We've got some, what do you think this is? This is one that you have male and female on separate plants normally, apart from Reeves Young. It's a skimia. So we've got skimia, so a lot of the evergreens are quite good for cuttings. We've got the camellia, and we've got, what have we got here with the 3 veins running down the leaf? Viburnum, that's good. So the Viburnum Davidii, might be German's Globe or one like that, but yeah, strong 3 veins. So again, we can get some cuttings off that. We've got a bit of sort of an open one here, a bit like the Leylandii type. And again, with the Leylandii type, you can literally peel them off the stem, strip the bottom third of leaves, and into the compost. You might need to trim that up a little bit, the heel. Okay, so that's the Leylandii type. We've got, I think, 1 or 2 other. Looks like out of a Petinia. Yeah, it could be a Petinia. That looks. Oh, that's they're opposite. So, oh, there's alternate. So I think that's a little bit of Petinia in there. So there's a good assortment. And over here, we've got a little bit of the chunky choice. This is the Choicia Aztec Pearl. So this is the lovely Choicia. This is good architectural foliage. Works well with maples because you've got that compound palmate leaf, so it really does look good. And we've got a little bit of holly, and we've got some rosemary. So there's a pretty good choice here to have a go at. Okay. And then we'll water them in, and then we'll have a look. The next stage, after you've taken your cuttings, your semi-ripe cuttings, we've got a mixture in here. Normally they have a tray of all one kind, of course, but we've done mallet, we've done leaf bud, we've done semi-ripe, leaf tip, so a variety of cuttings. And what we're going to do is we're going to just pop them, just making a bit of a makeshift sort of propagation area. So just a piece of wood for the ridge. And then what we'll do is we'll cover with some milky plastic. We've watered the plants. It's really important that you water the plants really well, so you've got that sort of humidity. Some of the leaves we've cut back to reduce transpiration. We'll cover up, and then really we're just going to leave them, and hopefully in a few months' time we'll come back and they'll have rooted. Okay.